It's got a local with something like 25,000 members. So from different factories and industrial areas around just the northern part of Joburg. Then they will have other locals. I think around Joburg they will have 6 locals covering the whole of Joburg, different parts and all that. Pretoria, the same thing, and other big cities. So I think what helped with us is that we've developed that relationship with the trade union movement. So it has made our work easy. Because initially when we started, we piggybacked on their events. They will give us their year plan to say, look, this year we'll have 5 conferences on different things. So they will have educational conference with 2,000 members. Then they will say, okay, come and do screenings. That was how initially we started. And then we'll have a national congress maybe after every 5 years. Then come, and then that national conference will have 10,000 members for 5 days or so. So we'll screen every day of that day in the evenings. So that's how we initially started, where we just piggybacked on their event, and we didn't spend much because they provide the venue, they provide everything. I mean, we'll just spend money on advertising, posters, and all that. So that's how we initially started. But we thought, doing that also was creating a problem where, because it's not one federation, you've got more than one federation. So some were starting to say, but you seem to be leaning to one and this and that. We said, okay, let's drop everything now. We're no longer piggybacking on that. We're now taking it, almost setting this Labour Film Festival independently now, to stand on its own, so that when we send out the invitations, then everybody can come from the different federations. So what helps us is that they provide transport to members who come out of the union monies, because the relationship we have is from national to provinces. You've got states here, we've got provinces, and we've got city, locals, and all that. So they provide transport to them for the members to go there. And it normally will also look at, if we have to acquire a venue, a community hall or whatever, civic center or civic community hall, then we'll use an affiliate that is actually organizing in the city council. To say, hey, use your connections to get us a venue, and that normally works. Then they will do that and use their influence, and we pay nothing for the venue. So the venues that we use, we don't have any relationship with any theater or any cinema house, because we think that can come later. For now, we don't want to avoid a lot of complications about deals and this didn't work, and so also we don't have money to pay, because they do ask for quite a lot of money. So linking that to the education program, like I say, the venues wouldn't pay and all that. The question now becomes, if you have to organize so many screenings in different places, as an organization, we only have something like 30 employees, and we wouldn't be anywhere. Now, the unions actually have agreed with us to set up the structures that we call the labor community media forums, right? Where they've got strong locals, like in the cities and in other townships. That labor community media forum will be composed of trade union leaders in the area. It will have civil society organizations like your NGOs and other community organizations will form part of this forum. But also because we initially have been doing work on radio, we produce what we call a labor show on community radios. I don't know if you are, we were just chatting to talk about what is the definition of community radio in the US. I'm staying in Tacoma Park. Tacoma Park, somebody will set up a radio in such a small area, just for Tacoma Park, will broadcast just in Tacoma Park. That's how they get set up. It's a phenomenon that started around 1995.
It's low frequency.
Low frequency, yes. Very cheap to set up.
And I think it's under the radar. FCC, I think, doesn't.
Well, they just let new licenses. There's something called media activism project.
But you don't have to get licensed.
Yeah, but the unions don't really.
Also are licensed.
The unions don't take advantage of it.
And because the reason why they were set up is because we came from a period where the state owned everything, especially media. They controlled everything, and after 1994, when the new government took over after the first democratic elections, the first thing people said was, we no longer want to go back to the period. So, create a diversity of media as possible, so that whoever, even if we can have a dictator tomorrow taking over power in Pretoria, but we can still organize using other structures. They wouldn't take there are something like 120 community radios spread across townships, cities, universities, colleges. There are just hundreds of them, and they're growing every day. The figure I'm giving you is probably from last year. Probably by now there are 200 community radios. So those are some of the things. There was this fear that we don't want to go back to a period where somebody will just take over power and control everything. So the same thing with television that is happening, what we call community televisions. So Tokoma Park will have its own community television, where they will broadcast the local issues, meetings, and church meetings, and soccer meetings, or whatever sports in Tokoma Park. So it's that kind of media that we have piggybacked on. We've got a good relationship with them in a form of what we call the labor show. It's a 1-hour show taking place weekly. And these are the topics that they cover. If you can look at this page, the topics range from anything from casualization of labor, violence against women, privatization, labor brokers. We produce those shows, and then they just broadcast them on their community radios and all that. We only have one national media or radio that we have a relationship with. They call it SAFM. It's a talk show radio, 24-hour talk show. It's partly owned by the state and all. But the relationship is very problematic. But it gives us an audience of something like 6 million people who listen to the radio and labor show as part of their broadcast. These are the list at the back of this of some of the community radios spread throughout the country. These are the 50 that we really have a good relationship with. The other 70 and all that we still, bringing them into the project along. So what does this give us? It gives us a platform to even advertise our labor show. Because now we've got a good relationship with Tokoma FM or Radio Tokoma. So if I say, look, we've got a film screening in Silver Springs, they will say, okay, we give you an hour to come and talk to the people of Tokoma about that film festival. For free, we pay nothing. Our labor show also, we pay them, for broadcasting, because some of the shows that I talked about are actually sponsored by some of the fundraising that we do and all that. But very small amounts just to encourage them, bring them together and closer to us. So, it gives us a very huge advantage of covering the whole country. And imagine if we have to if Workers' World have to take over power tomorrow, it means we've got power to speak to everybody on that free, low frequency radio. So, we do that. It's the way we broadcast, the way we screen our films is very low budget, very cheap. Firstly, because we use community halls, like I said, we use schools, we use churches, we use any venue that can just take people, right? But we organize that together with a local in a particular area. In Witbank, which is a mining town where they mine coal, you'll have a very strong local LCMF there, where they will say, look, we found a venue, we're organizing so many people from the trade unions around the area, bring the movies, bring the equipment. This is the venue, and we just do that. Like I say, we're really avoiding the high costs.
It's a technical question. So are you showing DVDs or what's the actual?
Yes, we show mostly it's on DVD.
On like a TV screen or or LCD projector? Or?
Yes, your normal projector and hopefully have a white wall or screen.
And free admission.
Yes. So we provide the equipment and the films. Yes.
Okay.
But sometimes it will depend. If if it's a venue that's got some of those equipment, then it also works well for us.
Okay.
Right? We'll provide speakers. Like somebody said, speakers will come. Normally, the speakers we'll take one from the trade unions. We'll take maybe one from if there is a university around, some of the academics to come and speak on the topic. We'll take. One speaker would maybe come also from some of the civil society organizations, depending on the films. The only film that we've made as an organization is this one called False Prophets, like I said. I only have a few copies here. And then, people will ask, for instance, we'll discuss a year before to say, what's the theme for next year? And the theme for 2013 was the capitalist crisis, but also looking at alternatives. Because it's a question of, like I said, maybe in the US you don't talk anything about what's happening in Venezuela or the experiment that Chavez was implementing there. But in South Africa, workers are interested in such things. Because what they are saying is that, look, after taking over power in 1994, things are not working. We've got this system that is just not functioning. The capitalist system where corporations are just profit-driven, make money. Especially South Africa being a minerals mining country, they mine, take the money away, and that's it. Should we be, we can't continue like that this is something that has been happening for more than 200 years. And people are saying, but we're tired of this, where people come with big pockets from Europe, from the US, and mine, and take everything away, and that's it. So they're looking at alternatives. Should the state maybe also be part of the ownership of the mines? How should we do it? Maybe in the US you're afraid to use words like nationalization. There they put it right on the table and say, is there a different model from the Soviet model of nationalization? What about state capitalism? Should we avoid that? South Africa is one country where I think out of the anti-apartheid struggle, people want to make sure that they maximize freedom of expression as much as possible. When you tell them, you cannot talk about communism, it's like, do you want to take us back to apartheid? Where we didn't have the voice, we want to speak out. If we disagree, we disagree. But if we agree, we agree. But, so there is that fear that, when you try to control discussions and debates, you're almost reminding people that this is what used to happen in the past. So maybe here is the opposite of that. But I don't want to get in the debates about the US. And then what we also do beyond this, we also thought, look, should workers well be involved in producing films? It's a headache. At the end of the day, we're doing so many things. Can't workers produce their own films? And then we've got this one, if you can look at this poster, Victims of Housing Eviction. It was actually produced by workers themselves. We just taught them how to use the video camera, lighting, how to do this, how to do interviews, what to do, what not do. And they produced a 4-minute film or documentary on a community that was being evicted from a place because they wanted to build a shopping mall or something. 4 minutes. Now we're taking it further, we're saying it means workers in different localities, if we can teach them media skills, how to produce their own media, we just buy equipment. Or unions provide equipment also, and then workers can produce their own movies. And this is where what we have started recently, to say in different areas, people must be able to produce their own movies. Because sometimes it's like, when you produce a movie, it either doesn't talk to their experience, or you seem to be imposing, certain ideas on people. So we say maybe the future is for a worker working in the factory being taught how to take a film, a video camera or whatever, and then filming his fellow workers, filming their conditions at work. If the employer maybe doesn't see them or whatever, use hidden cameras and just over time put that together, edit and all that. Maybe that's the future. Maybe some filmmakers will disagree with me and say, you're taking our jobs now. But I think
there's a lot of
I think there is just so much that has not been told, because it's a story of millions rather than a story of few thousand in the bush, coming now and again, planting bombs and all that. So we think people then need to tell that story of what happened, the millions, and so that's what makes our film festival unique, and we want to keep it that way. Unfortunately, we don't have any intentions to making a deal with some theater in a fancy place. We want to go to communities, we want to go to where they stay, screen there, but ultimately screen their own lives. You see their own movies and all that. Maybe the last thing, I mean, maybe the rationale behind why we also have a film festival linked to education is that since 1994 also the unions have lost most of their cream of their leadership. The best fighters who built these unions have been lost into government. Because, I mean, the biggest union, COSATU, is in alliance with the ruling party. So most of the ministers, most of, cabinet ministers or whoever, people in parliament, majority of them actually come from the unions. Because actually in the 80s, during apartheid, the unions were the best universities in those times. They educated those comrades, and I'm using the word comrades in the US. Is it acceptable? I don't know.
It's okay.
But they educated a huge layer of leaders and organizers that unfortunately they lost, because, after taking over, you can imagine, this is the ANC taking over in 94. It has never ruled any country. They needed people to man, the state. So the whole cream produced by the 70s and the 80s just went into government, which means the unions became a little bit weaker in terms of, continuing to mobilize and organize. So that's when they asked an organization like Workers' World to say, please step in, provide training. If you can look at my pamphlet, it combines film festival, but with some of the courses that we also offer for free to the unions. So, yeah, that's that. It's a labor union, labor film festival that is not necessarily standing on its own. It's part of training, educational.
I think it's a really interesting model. Actually, it's similar.
In areas where big cities, you get a big turnout of around 300. So, I remember in one venue, the size of this, people even were sitting on the chairs, on the floor, on the carpet. We had to borrow chairs from outside because some were even looking through the windows. And in the big cities, people do come. The figures go to 300, 400. Because, it happens in the evenings most of the time.
After work.
So after work. So the unions will provide the transport from collecting people from factories, from shops, from malls and whatever. So it's just a big event.
Denise?
How are you funded and what is your budget?
Only spend is on the posters and publicity, right? And we always cheat people and get a designer who's a lefty who say, no, do it for free. Or, you always work around a lot of costs. We do have quite a lot of, almost an army of designers in Joburg who do other things, but see this as their contribution. You say, no, I'll just do it for free. A printer will say, look, what is this thing, COSATU, and no, I'll just print it and charge you 10% of what I normally charge. So you end up just having cutting costs because people just volunteer to put together all this. And what you end up spending is quite a very small amount of just traveling, your staff members, nothing much.
I'm just curious on the labor intensive side because it is, are you staffed with?
With Workers' World,
Okay.
Yes.
So you're paid by.
So you work full time, yes, for this NGO.
Gotcha.